The silent scream. The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting Kepler 442b hummed with quiet efficiency. Technician Lisa Park adjusted her headset as another wave of cosmic background radiation washed across her screens. 3 years of monitoring. The outer rim had taught her to recognize the difference between stellar noise and something more significant. Tonight was different. The signal emerged from the static like a dying whisper, barely coherent but unmistakably artificial. Lisa's fingers flew across her console, isolating the frequency and running it through the translation algorithms. The results made her blood run cold. This is Warlord Thane of the Corvan Defense Force. Our world burns. The hegemony fleet has broken through our outer defenses. We have held for 6 cycles, but our thermal generators are failing. If any civilization receives this transmission, know that we fought until the end. We die as we lived, unbroken. Lisa stared at the screen, her heart racing. The Corvan system was 300 light-years away, deep in uncharted space. She had never heard of the species, but the desperation in the translated voice was unmistakable. She immediately forwarded the signal to Earth Command. Within hours, the message reached the highest levels of human government. In the secure briefing room beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Marcus Stone studied the data with growing concern. The holographic display showed the Corvan system, a single habitable planet orbiting a volatile red giant star. The planet's surface, temperature averages 180 degrees Celsius, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiology specialist. Constant volcanic activity, toxic atmosphere, and radiation levels that would kill most known species within hours. It's classified as a Class 5 death world. And someone lives there? Asked Admiral Stone. Apparently. The signal analysis suggests an advanced civilization with sophisticated technology. They've somehow thrived on one of the most hostile worlds we've ever encountered. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Admiral Stone turned to the intelligence briefing. What do we know about this hegemony? Commander Hayes, head of Alien Affairs, activated another display. Limited data, but what we have is concerning. The hegemony appears to be an expansionist empire that controls roughly 40 star systems in that region. They're known for complete subjugation of conquered worlds. Why would they want a death world? Admiral Stone asked. Dr. Vasquez highlighted several data points on the planetary scan. Preliminary analysis suggests unique mineral formations created by the extreme conditions. If the Corvan have learned to harness the planet's thermal energy, they might possess technology we've never seen. Admiral Stone stood and walked to the viewing window, looking out at the stars. Earth itself was considered a death world by galactic standards. Its weather patterns, natural disasters, and aggressive evolution had forged humanity into something uniquely resilient. Perhaps that's why this distant cry for help resonated so strongly. What's the Galactic Council's response? He asked. Commander Hayes shook his head. They've opened diplomatic channels with the hegemony. Estimated resolution time is 6 to 8 months, assuming negotiations succeed. These Corvan don't have 6 months. Admiral Stone turned back to the group. They probably don't have 6 days. 3,000 kilometers above Earth's surface, Captain Sarah Chen received the most unusual orders of her career. The UES Defiant hung in space like a predator, its sleek black hull designed for long-range reconnaissance and rapid strike missions. Chen had commanded the ship for 5 years, taking it through battles with space pirates and border conflicts that never made the news. Her executive officer, Commander Rex Torres, handed her the sealed orders with a puzzled expression. Ma'am, these came directly from Fleet Command, Priority Alpha classification. Chen broke the seal and read quickly, her expression growing more surprised with each line. When she finished, she looked up at her bridge crew, men and women who had followed her through impossible situations before. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received a mission unlike any in human history. We're going to make first contact with an alien species under siege. She activated the ship's intercom. All hands, prepare for emergency departure. We have a civilization to save. The Defiant's crew worked with practiced efficiency, loading supplies and weapons while the ship's computer calculated the complex series of hyperspace jumps needed to reach the Corvin system. Chief Engineer Maya Okafor supervised the installation of additional shielding and cooling systems. They would need every advantage when operating near a Class 5 Deathworld. As the ship prepared to depart, Chen stood on the bridge studying the tactical data. The Corvin distress signal had contained fragments of sensor readings showing the attacking fleet. The hegemony had brought overwhelming force, 3 dreadnoughts, a dozen cruisers, and an unknown number of support vessels. "Captain," Torres said quietly, "the Defiant is a good ship, but against a fleet that size." "I know the odds, Rex." Chen's voice was calm, but her eyes held the same determination that had carried her through every previous crisis. "But sometimes the right ship at the right time can change everything. The Corvin have survived on a world that would kill most species, they're fighters. They just need someone to even the odds." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's xenobiologist, approached with preliminary data on Corvin physiology. "Captain, based on their environmental adaptations, these beings are likely extremely resilient. Their technology has to be fundamentally different from anything we've encountered, built to function in conditions that would destroy conventional systems. Could be an advantage," Chen mused. "The hegemony might not understand what they're really facing." The final preparations took 18 hours. As the Defiant moved away from Earth orbit, Chen received a personal message from Admiral Stone. "Captain, you're about to make history. Earth is trusting you to represent our species to aliens who might become our greatest allies. Show them what humans can do." The hyperspace jump to the outer rim took 3 days. During the journey, the crew studied everything they could about Deathworld survival and high-temperature combat operations. Maya Okafor worked around the clock modifying their weapons and shields for the extreme conditions they would face. "The thermal radiation alone could overload our standard systems," she reported to Chen. "I'm installing additional heat dispersal, arrays and upgrading our cooling systems. We'll be able to operate in the Corvin system, but it won't be comfortable." On the final day of their journey, the Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Corvin system. What they found exceeded their worst fears. The space around the volcanic planet was filled with debris from destroyed ships. The hegemony fleet had established a blockade, systematically bombarding the surface with orbital weapons. "My God," whispered Torres, staring at the tactical display. "How many ships are there?" 43 combat vessels," reported Lieutenant Kim at the sensor station. 3 heavy dreadnoughts anchoring the formation. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. The Corvin are still fighting." Chen studied the enemy formation, her tactical mind already working on solutions. The hegemony had positioned their ships to maximize bombardment efficiency while minimizing exposure to surface-based weapons. It was a textbook siege formation, and it had a weakness. "Maya," she called to engineering, "what's our maximum stealth capability in this environment?" "The thermal radiation will interfere with our cloaking systems," Okafor replied, "but I can give you maybe 20 minutes of partial concealment. Enough to get close, but not enough for a prolonged approach." 20 minutes will have to be enough." Chen turned to her communications officer. "Lieutenant Park, see if you can establish contact with the Corvin. Tell them the cavalry has arrived." The response came faster than expected, crackling through space despite the hegemony's jamming efforts. The voice was deep and resonant, clearly non-human but speaking perfect English through their translation systems. "Unknown vessel, this is Warlord Thane. Your ship signature is unfamiliar. Identify yourself before the hegemony destroys you." Chen smiled grimly. Even facing extinction, the Corvin warrior was more concerned about protecting a stranger than saving himself. "Warlord Thane, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiant. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The silence stretched for long seconds. When Thane's voice returned, it carried a mixture of hope and disbelief. "Earth? You are from the species the Council calls the Deathworld dwellers? That's us. And from one Deathworld species to another, we're not letting the hegemony win this fight." Chen could hear what sounded like cheering in the background of Thane's transmission. "Captain Chen, your timing is significant. Our thermal generators are at 15% capacity, We can hold perhaps 2 more days before our underground cities lose power. Then we'd better work fast. Chen studied the tactical display one more time. Warlord, I need to know everything about your defenses. We're going to coordinate an attack that will give the hegemony something to think about. As the Defiant moved deeper into the system under partial stealth, Chen felt the familiar calm that came before battle. They were outnumbered 43-1, attacking an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds. But they had something the hegemony didn't expect. The fury of 2 Deathworld species united in common cause. The planet Corvin grew larger on their screens, its surface a hellscape of active volcanoes and molten seas. Somehow in the depths of that burning world, an entire civilization waited for salvation. Earth had sent them 1 ship and 60 souls willing to face impossible odds. For the Corvin, and for humanity's honor, it would have to be enough. Into the fire. The UES Defiant slipped through the asteroid field at the edge of the Corvin system like a shadow, its stealth system straining against the intense thermal radiation. Captain Chen watched the tactical display as Maya Okafor's modifications proved their worth. The ship's heat dispersal arrays glowed cherry red, but they were holding. Stealth field at 60% and dropping, reported Lieutenant Kim. The thermal interference is worse than predicted. How much longer? Chen asked. 12 minutes maximum before we're fully visible to their sensors. Chen nodded. 12 minutes to get close enough to make a difference. On the main screen, the Corvin, homeworld dominated the view, a sphere of molten rock and volcanic fury that somehow harbored an advanced civilization. Even from space, she could see the massive energy discharges as hegemony orbital bombardment met Corvin defensive fire. Captain, the communications officer called out, Warlord Thane is transmitting coordinates for a meeting site. He says there's a thermal vent system that leads to their primary command center. Chen studied the coordinates. They were on the planet's surface in the middle of what appeared to be an active volcanic region.
Maya, can our shuttles handle those conditions? Chief Engineer Okafor consulted her readings. With the modifications we've made, yes, but it'll be like flying through hell itself. Sounds about right for a first contact mission. Chen made
her decision. Rex, you have the bridge. If things go badly down there, get the ship out of the system and report back to Earth Command. Captain, with respect, I should be the one going down there. Chen was already heading for the shuttle bay. Negative. If we're going to convince the Corvin that Earth is serious about this alliance, they need to meet someone with decision-making. Authority. 20 minutes later, Chen found herself descending through the Corvin atmosphere in a shuttle that groaned under the extreme conditions. The external temperature gauge read 195 degrees Celsius and climbing. Outside the reinforced viewports, lightning crackled through clouds of sulfur dioxide while volcanic peaks thrust upward like the spears of ancient gods. Landing zone in sight, reported the pilot, sweat beading on his forehead despite the shuttle's cooling systems. Ma'am, I've never seen anything like this. How do they live here? Chen watched as a massive structure emerged from the volcanic landscape, a series of interconnected domes and towers that seemed to grow directly from the molten rock. The architecture was unlike anything in human experience, designed to channel and harness the planet's destructive energy, rather than merely survive it. The shuttle settled onto a landing platform that radiated heat waves even through their thermal shielding. As Chen and her small escort team prepared to disembark, the airlock opened to reveal their first Corvin. Warlord Thane stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in what appeared to be natural armor plating that gleamed with a metallic sheen. His face was angular and fierce, with eyes that burned like embers. Most remarkably, he seemed completely unaffected by the extreme heat that had Chen's environmental suit working at maximum capacity. Captain Chen, Thane's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Welcome to Corvin. I must admit, when we sent our distress call, we never expected answer from another Deathworld species. Chen removed her helmet, a calculated risk that paid off, when Thane's eyes widened in surprise. The air was breathable, though heavy with sulfur compounds that made her eyes water. Warlord Thane, on behalf of Earth and humanity, we're honored to meet you. Your reputation as warriors precedes you. Thane made a gesture that might have been a smile. As does yours, Captain. The Galactic Council calls your people recklessly, aggressive, and dangerously unpredictable. High praise indeed. As they walked through the Corvin Command Center, Chen marveled at the technology around her. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with energy, drawing power from the planet's thermal core. Corvin technicians worked at control stations that appeared to be grown rather than built, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light and heat. Your thermal generators, Chen observed. They're not just using the planet's energy, they're part of it. Precisely, Thane replied with what Chen was beginning to recognize as pride. My people learned long ago that to survive on Corvin, one must become one with its fury. Our technology is biological, evolved rather than engineered. It grows stronger, under stress, more efficient under pressure. They reached the central command chamber where a massive holographic display showed the battle raging in orbit. The hegemony fleet had tightened its formation, concentrating its firepower on the planet's main defensive installations. Even as they watched, another of Corvin's orbital platforms exploded under sustained bombardment. Status report, Thane commanded his officers. A female Corvin with elaborate marking on her armor approached. Warlord, thermal generator output is down to 12%. The underground cities are on emergency power. We have perhaps 36 hours before life support fails in the deepest levels. Chen studied the tactical display with professional interest. Your orbital defenses are impressive, but you're fighting a siege. They're wearing you down. Yes, Thane agreed grimly. The hegemony has patience. They can afford to wait while we slowly die. Our only advantage has been our thermal weapons. They can penetrate hegemony shields where conventional energy weapons cannot. Show me, Chen requested. Thane activated a control, and the display zoomed in on one of the planetary defense batteries. Chen watched as it fired a blast of superheated plasma that punched through a hegemony cruiser's shields and melted through its hull in seconds. Remarkable, Chen breathed. Your weapons use the planet's thermal energy directly. The crystals, Thane explained, gesturing to formations visible throughout the command center. They grow in our deepest thermal vents, exposed to pressures and temperatures that would destroy any conventional technology. They can focus and amplify thermal energy to devastating effect. Chen's tactical mind was already working. Warlord, what if I told you we could help you take the fight to the hegemony fleet directly? Thane's eyes brightened. You have a plan? I have a ship with weapons designed for surprise attacks. And if your thermal crystals can be adapted to our systems... Chen trailed off as an idea began to form. Their planning was interrupted by alarms throughout the command center. A Corvin officer called out urgently. Warlord, hegemony reinforcements have arrived. 3 additional dreadnoughts and escort vessels. The tactical display updated to show the grim reality. The hegemony fleet had doubled in size, now containing over 80 combat vessels. Against such odds, even the Corvin's impressive defenses could not hold. Captain Chen, Thane said quietly, I fear your journey may have been wasted. Against such numbers... Don't give up yet. Chen interrupted. She activated her communicator. Defiant, this is the captain. Rex, what's our status? Torres's voice crackled back. Captain, the hegemony has detected us. We're holding position at the edge of sensor range, but they're moving ships to intercept. Understood. Patch me through to Maya. Okafor's voice came online immediately. Captain, I've been monitoring the planetary defense systems. These thermal crystals are incredible. They could revolutionize our weapons technology. Chen looked at Thane, who nodded slowly. Maya, the Corvin are willing to share their crystal technology. How quickly can you integrate it into our weapons systems? With their help? 6 hours for a basic integration, 12 for full optimization. You have 6 hours, Chen decided. And Maya, I want you to design something that will give the hegemony nightmares. As her engineering team began working with Corvin technicians to modify the Defiance weapons, Chen and Thane planned their attack. The hegemony fleet was powerful, but it was also overconfident. They had conquered dozens of worlds without serious resistance. They weren't prepared for an enemy that fought back with the fury of a volcanic world and the tactical innovation of humanity combined. The key is coordination, Chen explained, pointing to the tactical display. Your orbital platforms attack in sequence, drawing their attention and forcing them to concentrate their shields. At that moment, the Defiant strikes from their blind spot with thermal-enhanced weapons. Thane studied the plan carefully. It could work, but the timing must be perfect. If your ship is detected too early, then we improvise, Chen replied with a grim smile. That's what humans do best. As the hours passed, Chen found herself developing deep respect for the Corvin. They were warriors in the truest sense, not bloodthirsty conquerors, but defenders, who had spent millennia protecting their harsh world from those who would exploit its resources. Their technology was elegant in its brutal efficiency, every system designed to harness rather than fight their planet's deadly environment. When Maya reported that the weapons integration was complete, Chen felt the familiar calm of approaching battle. The Defiant now carried weapons that no hegemony ship had ever faced, human tactical innovation powered by the thermal fury of a Deathworld. "Warlord," she said to Thane, "are your people ready?" Thane's response carried the weight of his species' determination. "Captain Chen, my people have been ready since the day we learned to walk on burning ground. Today, we show the hegemony what happens when Deathworlders unite." The battle for Corvin was about to begin, forged in battle. The space around Corvin erupted into chaos as the first phase of the coordinated attack began. Warlord Thane's orbital platforms opened fire simultaneously, their thermal weapons carving brilliant lines of superheated plasma through the void. The hegemony fleet, caught off guard by the sudden intensity of the bombardment, scrambled to adjust their defensive formations. High Admiral Zex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Dominance, watching with growing irritation as his ships maneuvered to avoid the unexpectedly powerful defensive fire. The Corvin had been weakening steadily for days. This sudden surge in their capabilities was impossible. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the Corvin weapons are penetrating our shields more effectively than before. Power output has increased by 300%. "Impossible," Zex snarled, his scaled hide rippling with angry patterns. Their thermal generators were nearly depleted. How are they generating this much power? His question was answered seconds later as the UES Defiant materialized from the asteroid field, its dark hull reflecting the volcanic glow of the planet below. The human ship moved with predatory grace, accelerating toward the hegemony formation at a speed that defied conventional tactics. "Unknown vessel approaching from Sector 7, the communications officer announced. "They're ignoring our hails." Admiral Zex studied the tactical display with growing unease. The ship's design was unlike anything in hegemony databases, sleek and aggressive, built for speed and stealth rather than the massive firepower displays his species preferred. "Destroy it," he ordered. But the Defiant was already executing Captain Chen's battle plan. As the nearest hegemony cruisers turned to engage, the human ship unleashed its modified weapons. Thermal-enhanced missiles streaked through space, their warheads containing crystalline cores that had been growing in Corvin's volcanic depths for centuries. The first missile struck a hegemony destroyer squarely amidships. Instead of the conventional explosion the crew expected, the weapon released a focused burst of thermal energy that melted through the ship's armor like a cutting torch through paper. Secondary explosions rippled along the destroyer's hull as critical systems overloaded from the incredible heat. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Kim called out from the Defiant's tactical station. Their shields had no effect. The thermal charge went right through. Captain Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the enemy formation begin to scatter. Maya's modifications work even better than predicted. All batteries, continue firing. Target their heavy cruisers. On the planet's surface, Warlord Thane coordinated the ground-based assault with fierce pride. His people had waited generations for an opportunity to strike back at those who would conquer Deathworlds. The alliance with humanity had given them that chance. "Channel all available power to the orbital platforms," he commanded. "Today we show the galaxy that Corvin does not yield." The combined assault was devastating. Corvin thermal weapons, now operating at full capacity with power diverted from non-essential systems, carved through hegemony shields while the Defiant's modified missiles eliminated ships with surgical precision. Within the first hour of battle, the hegemony had lost 12 vessels with no human or Corvan casualties. Admiral Zex realized he was facing something unprecedented, a coordinated attack by two species he had never encountered working in perfect synchronization. The human ship moved with tactical brilliance, always appearing where his defenses were weakest, while the planetary weapons provided devastating cover fire. "Recall all ships to defensive formation," he ordered. "Concentrate firepower on the human vessel." But Chen had anticipated this response. As the hegemony fleet closed ranks around their flagship, she executed the second phase of her plan. The Defiant dove toward the planet's surface using Corvin's volcanic atmosphere as cover, while Thane's forces prepared their most powerful weapons. "Engineering to bridge," Maya's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, the thermal crystals are responding to the planet's magnetic field. I'm reading energy levels I've never seen before." Chen checked their position relative to the planet's surface. They were skimming through the upper atmosphere, the ship's hull glowing from atmospheric friction and thermal radiation. "How long until full charge?" 3 minutes, Maya replied. "But Captain, if we fire at this power level, the discharge will be visible from orbit," Chen finished. "That's the idea." Deep in Corvin's underground command center, Thane watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The human captain was using his planet's own fury as a weapon, drawing power directly from the thermal storms that raged in the atmosphere. It was a strategy only someone who truly understood Deathworld survival could conceive. "All platforms, prepare for synchronized bombardment," Thane commanded. "When the human ship fires, we follow immediately." The Defiant emerged from Corvin's atmosphere like a comet, its hull blazing with thermal energy absorbed from the volcanic storms below. The ship's modified weapons had been charged to levels that would have been impossible with conventional technology. As Chen gave the firing command, the crystalline cores released their stored energy in a focused beam that tore through space toward the hegemony flagship. Admiral Zex had seconds to recognize his doom. The thermal beam struck the Dominance's forward shields and simply vaporized them, continuing through the ship's armor and deep into its core. The massive dreadnought shuddered as its primary power systems overloaded, emergency lights flickering across its bridge. "Impossible," Zex whispered as his flagship began to break apart around him. "No single shot could penetrate our defenses." His final thought was cut short as the Dominance exploded in a brilliant fireball visible from the planet's surface. The destruction of the hegemony flagship sent shockwaves through the enemy formation. Their most powerful vessel had been destroyed by creatures they considered primitive and weak. The remaining hegemony ships began to retreat, but Chen wasn't finished. "All ships fleeing the system are to be considered hostile," she announced over an open channel. "This system is now under the protection of the Earth-Corvan Alliance." The battle continued for another 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The combined fury of two Deathworld species proved unstoppable. Hegemony ships that tried to flee were intercepted by the Defiant, while those that remained to fight were systematically destroyed by coordinated thermal weapons fire. When the last enemy vessel jumped to hyperspace, the space around Corvan was littered with debris from 37 destroyed hegemony ships. The mighty fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds had been broken by a single human vessel and the defenders of a volcanic Deathworld. In the aftermath of victory, Chen found herself back in Thane's command center, watching as Corvan engineers worked alongside human technicians to analyze the captured hegemony technology. The alliance that had been forged in battle was already bearing fruit. "Captain Chen," Thane said, approaching with what she now recognized as the Corvan equivalent of a smile. "My people have a saying, from the deepest fire comes the strongest metal. I believe our species will create something remarkable together." Chen nodded, looking at the holographic displays showing the combined technologies. The thermal crystals were being integrated into human ships, while Corvan vessels were being equipped with human targeting systems and tactical computers. The hybrid technologies promised capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. "There's something else," Chen said, activating a communication link to Earth. Admiral Stone needs to hear this directly. Fleet Admiral Stone's image appeared on the display, his expression mixing relief and pride. Captain, congratulations on a successful first contact mission. The footage from your battle is already being analyzed by our strategic planners. Admiral, the Corvin have agreed to a formal alliance, Chen reported. They're willing to share their thermal crystal technology in exchange for our tactical and navigation systems. More importantly, they've provided intelligence on hegemony, operations throughout this sector. Stone's expression grew serious. What kind of intelligence? Warlord Thane stepped forward, his massive frame dominating the display. Admiral Stone, the hegemony has been systematically targeting Deathworld species for conquest. They believe such worlds contain unique resources and that their inhabitants can be enslaved due to their isolation from galactic civilization. They're wrong on both counts, Chen added. The Corvin are the third Deathworld species I know of that has developed advanced civilization. Earth wasn't an anomaly. We're part of a pattern. Admiral Stone absorbed this information quickly. Are you suggesting there are other species like us out there? Not like us exactly, Thane replied, but forged by similar circumstances. Worlds that created survivors, innovators, warriors. The hegemony has been hunting us one by one. Chen saw the implications immediately. Admiral, I recommend we expand this alliance. If there are other Deathworld species under threat, they need to know they're not alone. 3 months later, the first Deathworld Alliance Summit was held on Corvin, with representatives from 6 species that had evolved on hostile worlds. The Corvin provided the location and thermal technology, while humanity contributed tactical expertise and faster-than-light communication networks. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral and Commander of the Alliance Fleet, stood on the observation deck of the new joint headquarters, watching as ships from multiple Deathworld species worked together in the volcanic skies above. Human vessels with Corvin thermal weapons flew alongside Corvin ships equipped with human shields and targeting computers. Engineer Maya Okafor approached with the latest technical reports. Admiral, the technology integration is proceeding ahead of schedule. The thermal crystal matrices are adapting to our systems faster than predicted, almost as if they want to work together. Chen smiled as she watched a joint patrol of human and Corvin vessels disappear into hyperspace. Maybe that's exactly what's happening, Maya. Maybe the universe has been waiting for us to find each other. The hegemony would return eventually. Empires like theirs didn't give up easily. But when they did, they would find not scattered, isolated Deathworld species fighting alone, but a united alliance of the galaxy's most determined survivors. The distress call from Corvin had led to something far greater than a rescue mission. It had sparked the beginning of a new era, where the harsh worlds that forged the strongest civilizations would stand together against any threat. In the depths of space, other distress calls waited to be answered, and now they would not go unanswered. The Deathworld Alliance was ready to respond, carrying the combined fury of a dozen harsh worlds and the unbreakable spirit of those who had learned to thrive where others merely survived. The galaxy would never be the same.